Hey everyone, this is going to be a shorter recap of my live stream from a few days ago where I went in depth about the fiasco of my new pick and place machine from Charmhigh and the piece of crap that it is and their inability to take any responsibility for anything to do with this machine. Take my money and you're on your own. And I'm also going to do an update on what I've done to the machine since then, the things I've tried that haven't worked, the improvements I've made that have made a noticeable difference but far from good enough. This video is going to shame Charmhigh. And look, I don't like shaming people. I don't think shaming people is an effective way of getting any type of results. But I'm not looking for results here. To be clear, my conversation with Charmhigh is done. I gave them 5 days to stand up, put their hand up, take responsibility, and actually offer me a solution for this machine. And they didn't. They used every excuse under the sun. Some of the bullshit that they span at me, which I will let you know here, I did on the stream, and it blew most people's minds. Some of the bullshit was just beyond reality. But, 5 days, I didn't threaten them once, I didn't scream at them once, I sent them dozens of videos, I sent them dozens of screenshots, I tried everything that they asked of me, which included cutting springs on feeders, bending metal on feeders, but at no point did anything that they suggested work, and basically they've sold me a machine that can't do what they say it can do. It absolutely cannot do what they say it can do, and they left it with me that it was my fault because my expectations were too high of this machine. My expectations are too high that it would be able to pick up a part out of a feeder. A SOT 23 part, nope. A SOT 363, nope. How about an 0603 capacitor? Nope. How about an 0402 resistor? Nope. But that's too high an expectation. Which is kind of funny because they have videos of mine, from my channel, of me building this exact same board, my tiny Pico, on my original Charmhigh machine, which is 1/3 of the price of this machine, and it works perfectly. Does everything I need. They use that video on their websites to sell more Charmhighs without my permission. They put them there. But my expectation on this machine is too high. Yeah, absolute bullshit. Anyway, let's have a look at the machine. I will go through what issues there are with this machine. And again, no one knows why. I still haven't worked out why there is an issue. It could be that all of my feeders are faulty. All 36 of my 8mm feeders are faulty. It's likely. Will Charmhigh replace them? No. Is my machine faulty? Very much likely. Charmhigh say, no, it was tested. No, it's not faulty. Is the design of the machine flawed? Absolutely. Charmhigh? Nope. Nope, we've sold so many. You're the only customer that has a problem. All our customers are happy customers. Yeah, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. Because I have it in writing from their engineers that this is a known issue. It's a known issue with pneumatic feeders, and they knew that, and they sold me this machine anyway. They took my money knowing that this is a known issue, and now they've left me out hanging. Nice. $17,000 down the drain. Well, let's hope not. So far I've spent an extra $1,500 to try to get it working, and I've got it working better than they were able to, but still not good enough. Let's have a look. So this is the machine. It's the Charmhigh T560P4. They also have a T530P4 model. The difference is this has 60 feeder slots, 30 at the front, 30 at the back, where the 530 model only has 30 feeder spots at the front. As you can see here, I've got 19 8mm feeders here. The blue handle feeders are an 8mm feeder with a 2mm pitch. They're designed specifically for 0402 components. The black handle ones are 8mm with a 4mm pitch. So that is just a standard 0603 and above type component. But there are obviously some components that you buy that aren't passives that have different pitches. For instance, my SOT 723 MOSFETs, they are a 2mm pitch on an 8mm tape. My Schottkys, which are SOD 523, are a 4mm pitch because they put one every second hole. So what's the problem with the machine? Well, the problem is that it uses compressed air system that fires the pneumatics within these feeders. They're pneumatic feeders, not electric feeders. So when the air fires, the shutter of a feeder opens and exposes a part. That's the only thing that happens. The shutter opens, which the shutter covers and protects the part before pickup. The shutter opens, and then the head can come and pick the part. There's no other movement. And then when the shutter is closed, the tape is advanced and the cover tape is pulled back. So all it's doing is opening the shutter so the head can pick the part. So when the machine tells it to open the shutter, the part flies out, or the part flips upside down, or the part goes sideways. And that happens pretty much every single time. Not a really accurate pick and place machine when the parts that you're putting down are sideways or upside down, especially when the vision system can't tell the difference between an upside down MOSFET and a right side up one, or an upside down Schottky diode, or a back to front Schottky diode because it flipped, or an LED that flipped inside and turned around the wrong way, and then it's placing them back to front, which obviously won't work. So apparently this is a known issue with Charmhigh and generally in the industry, specifically with components that come on plastic tape. Now, Charmhigh know that this is an issue, but nothing was said to me, not before I bought it. So all of my plastic tape parts were jumping out. Like, often there was no part to pick up because it jumped right out and landed on my floor, or landed all over the pick and place machine. There are parts all over the inside of this pick and place machine. Charmhigh's response was, yes, this is, or after many days of saying there's nothing wrong with the machine, their engineers confirmed this is a problem with plastic tape, but paper tape is fine. Paper tape works, and they tested this machine with paper tape. Every single one of my 0402 components in my paper tape, so we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them, they all bounce and flip. Most of the time they don't flip out because the little pockets that they sit in on the paper tape is a much more confined space than the openness of the plastic tape pockets. But my 0603 component, which is on paper tape, also flips out. Not as often, maybe only 1 out of every 6 times. It'll not flip out and land out, but it'll flip onto its side. It'll go from here to sit like that inside the tape. And then it causes a problem picking it up. Quite often it'll pick it up on its corner and then it'll drop it by the time it takes it to the camera. So clearly there is a problem. Working out what the problem is has been tricky. This machine only has one compressed air input port that then regulates the incoming air and takes it down to approximately 5 bar, or 0.5 megapascals, or 75 psi, I believe. So it's got one input, and then it splits it out to the front and to the back evenly. Now, the 5 bar is the level it needs to be able to fire the biggest feeder it can support, which is a 24mm feeder with components on it. So a 24mm feeder weighs about 4 times the amount of one of these 8mm feeders and generally holds a large reel that is much heavier with much heavier components inside it. So it takes a lot more force to push forward on one of those reels. And that's how much force is required for that. And that's the same amount of force that it sends to these 8mm feeders. Now, there are folks I've been chatting to on the net that are running these feeders. These are cloned Yamaha CL feeders. They're running cloned feeders. It might not be this exact brand, but they look identical on their pick and place machines, non-Charmhigh pick and place machines, and have no issues with the amount of pressure, that they don't get any jumping out. They've found ways of calibrating their feeders and tuning them to make sure that they get little to no bounce, even on plastic tape, regardless of the pressure. Unfortunately, the calibrations they do on those feeders seem to have already been done on my feeders, and there's no tweaks I could make to the feeders that would improve anything, which is a shame because I was hoping that would be the solving point, but it's not. So in my case, it's the amount of force, the amount of pressure that is pushing that shutter open is bouncing the part. I can 100% reproduce it, and I can 100% make it stop by dropping the pressure and or limiting airflow. But the problem is if I drop pressure at the main input section, then my large feeders don't fire. And this stupid design doesn't allow for individual control of either bank or individual control of either feeder position, which is ridiculous because you can have two 8mm feeders next to each other and they could have parts in them that have completely different sizes, different characteristics, different weights. Not being able to tune the ports for each feeder seems like a really ridiculous thing to miss out on. But apparently it's not needed. But on this machine it absolutely is. No one knows why. Is it just my machine that's faulty? Maybe. Will Charmhigh entertain the idea that my machine's faulty? No. So the first thing I tried was adding these inline valves to reduce the airflow. Now, the problem with that is it's not reducing the pressure, it's just reducing the airflow, which means it's the same pressure but at a slower rate. And I managed to get it to a point where the parts wouldn't bounce. Perfect, I thought. No, the issue is that the shutter pulls back slowly, and there is no settings in the software on this machine that allows you to delay the pickup. You can delay how long the head holds on the part before it lifts it, but you can't tell it how long to wait before it drops down to get it. So what would happen is the pickup head would go into place and it would go to grab the part, but the shutter wasn't pulled back yet. So it would just smack into the shutter, which is eventually going to break the nozzle on my pickup head, and it would mispick the part. So that wasn't a solution. I was really hopeful, but it didn't work. So everyone was saying to me, no, don't slow down the air rate, you need to drop the pressure. Okay, great. So I went and did this. I got myself a regulator and I intercepted the air line that goes to the front bank only, and I dropped the pressure down to around 3 bar to get it to stop bouncing the parts. Now, because I'm dropping pressure and not reducing the flow rate, it doesn't slow down the shutter opening, which is great. But to stop the parts from bouncing, I had to get the pressure so low that it wouldn't then feed the part when the air was turned off. So turning the air on would expose the part, and then turning the air off, which would normally advance the tape and do the cover tape pullback, didn't happen. So no part would get advanced. So again, the regulator on its own doesn't work. What I ended up with is using a combination of regulator and inline flow control. That way I can drop the pressure but not as much, so I can still allow the feeders to fire forward, but I can drop it enough that I don't have to restrict the airflow on the inline valves as much, which means it doesn't slow down the shutter opening. And the combination of the two has reduced the parts jumping from, on some tapes, 100% of the time, down to maybe 1 or 2 out of 10, and on some of my other parts that was only doing it 1 out of every 2 or 3 times, it seems to have eliminated it. But this so far has cost me about $1,200 in regulators, in inline fittings, in new cabling, in connectors, and all sorts of stuff. And even with all of this, the reliability of the machine is well under what my original Charmhigh was. Let's look at the next issue. It's a rather big one. The feeder's attached to this front bank here. There are 2 holes. The first one is for a guide hole. The back one is where the air comes through. And the feeders lock in via their handle. So if I open the handle, the feeder is now unlocked. You can see it moves around. I can pull it out. You can see there's a latch at the front. When I close this, the latch pulls forward to lock. So you put the feeder in, put the handle down, and it should be locked. And it shouldn't move. Now, before I show you it moving, I've added 4mm thick foam here. Okay? This is 4mm thick foam to try to stop it from moving. And with the 4mm foam, look at this. That's with the foam. Imagine what that would be like without the foam. Next one along. It's pretty firm. Hardly moves. The next one along. moves even more. They've all got the foam. Each one of these has been checked by me, and the locking position is in the tightest position it can be. It uses a concentric nut, and you loosen a grub screw and you can rotate that nut, and that will decide whether there's more tension or less tension. I have every single one of these feeders at the maximum tension on the locking handle, and it still moves this much with 4mm of foam trying to hold it still. Now, if that's not a design flaw, I don't know what is. So what do you think is going to happen to these feeders when the pneumatic fires really strong and really fast to open the shutter? Do you reckon they're going to bounce much? Yeah, probably. If Charmhigh make all of these the same, and all of their customers, except for me, have no issues, then it's got to be all my feeders, right? All of my feeders must have a problem if every single one of them is loose. This one is only not loose because of the foam. This one I'm wobbling here. This is clearly my fault, right? I'm clearly doing something wrong because the feeders that they sold me don't fit on the machine they sold me. Response from Charmhigh? Nothing. What do I do about the loose feeders? Nothing. Are my feeders faulty because they don't fit the machine properly? Nothing. Your machine's faulty because the feeder bank isn't the right size. No, our machine is fine. There's nothing wrong with our machine. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. They ship me a machine that has no pressure or flow control to the front bank to reduce the amount of air that comes through, and I have feeders that they gave me that go onto the machine that don't lock into place. That sounds like an absolute recipe for disaster, and it is. Okay, let's talk about one last issue really quickly. I built this panel last night. Obviously, the parts are on there, so the pickup head positions were set correctly. Now let's have a look what happens when I turn the machine on and have a look at the pickup positions again for the feeders. Okay, we're booted. Let's go have a look at one of the pickup positions. Let's go to feeder position 2, my 100k 0402 resistors. The position has gone up. It's not in the center anymore. Let's look at the next position, 2k 0402 resistors. The pickup position has moved. It's no longer in the center. It's not where it was when I last ran the machine and turned the machine off. Look at that. Not even on the component. It's material stack number 4. Feeder number 4. 160k. Look at that. The machine, when it gets turned off and then gets turned on again, loses all of its pickup positions. Or the calibration process they do when the machine first turns on and homes itself is not reproducible every time the machine starts up. So every frickin' time I turn this machine on, I have to go through and recalibrate every feeder's pickup position every single time. And by doing so, I'm wasting parts. Because to fix this, I need to move it into place, set it, and go back and check it. That's 2 parts gone. Oh, look at that! It's on its side. This is with my fix and the regulation. As I said, it's not fixed it, it's just reduced the issue. Straight away. Component on its side. This is ridiculous. This machine is a piece of shit. So the machine, as it shipped to me, was a disgrace. An absolute disaster. 100% unusable. There were components on their edges, there were components upside down, there were components the wrong way around. The amount of wastage of the machine picking and discarding components because it was picking them up incorrectly was at a level that I never expected. honestly thrown components everywhere. It was incapable of picking any parts up. It meant that every board that I built on the machine, I had to put under a microscope and inspect every single part to make sure that any of the diodes weren't on back to front, that the parts were flipped the right way around, there were LEDs standing upright, there were resistors standing upright. You know how thin a resistor is, 0402 resistor. It was just an absolute disgrace. And at no stage through the 5 days of conversation I had with Charmhigh would they even entertain the possibility that there was something wrong with the machine or something wrong with something they sent me. But they had a solution for me. It was an awesome solution. You ready? It would fix all my problems. Pay $10,000 more to them and they'll send me electric feeders. So that way the pneumatics go away and the electric feeders won't have the problem. But I had to pay $10,000 more, Australian. And that was only for enough feeders to be able to build my tiny picos. What about the other boards I want to do? What about all the rest of the slots that I need to fill to be able to do more than one board at a time, which was my problem with my old machine. I bought a pick and place machine that has 60 feeder slots so I can load them all up and be able to build one of 3 or 4 different boards whenever I needed without having to reload or shuffle parts around. Makes sense, right? No. Would have cost me $26,000 to get enough feeders to fit out the whole machine. What a bonus for them. Yeah, no. So some of the things, some of the bullshit they said to me. Number one, it's the manufacturer's fault, the component manufacturer's fault. I need to contact my component manufacturers for the parts I buy and ask them to stop using plastic tape. That they should ship all their tape on paper. Yeah, it's the manufacturer of the parts. Yeah, it's their fault that Charmhigh's machine can't deliver a part without throwing it. I mean, seriously, the amount of crap, just unbelievable. So, I'm making this video as a warning to everyone. Maybe it's just my machine, maybe your mileage will vary, but Charmhigh sold me a machine that is incapable of doing what they say it can do, doing what their website says it can do. On the note of their website, it states very clearly on there all of the components it can handle, including 0201, with no mention of electric feeders, by the way. There's no mention of electric feeders on there. There's no mention of issues with plastic tape. It says 3 different places that the machine is fully capable of working with 0402 and above. And when I challenged them on it and said, hey, your website in 3 different places says it can do what this machine cannot do, the response was, we only say we can place these components. We never mention that we can pick them up. What? Firstly, there's no mention of the word place on the whole entire product website for this machine. It's not written anywhere. So that's just an outright lie. But what? They only mention that they can place the parts, not that they can pick them up. What freaking type of pick and place machine is only capable of placing something but can't pick it up to place it first? Come on. I mean, I've got all this in writing, by the way. All documented. Absolute bullshit that Charmhigh threw at me to cover the fact that their machine is shit and they don't know why or how to fix it, but they know it was a known issue before they sold it to me, but gladly sold it to me anyway. Took my 17,000 Australian dollars and left me with a piece of shit and do not care. Now, I know many of you will say, you're dealing with China, that's what you get. Why would you expect any more dealing with China? No. China are doing commerce in the world. What other country would get away with that crap? China only gets away with it because people who buy from China let them get away with it. Well, I'm not going to let them get away with it. Okay? If they would have put their hand up and said, hey, okay, I think we might have a problem, let's work with you to try to solve what is wrong with the machine, that would have been a different story. Even if they couldn't work it out, the fact that they were trying to help me fix what was wrong with the machine would have been fine. But no, there's nothing wrong with the machine. The machine is perfect, 100% tested before it's shipped, nothing wrong with it, impossible. Nothing wrong with the design, impossible. They won't take any responsibility at all for the state of this, and instead make up bullshit to try to cover their asses. And I wasn't going to let that slide. Not a chance. If you want to buy a Charmhigh machine, good luck to you. You're on your own, right? I wouldn't. The best you might get will be a machine that works, but no support. But most likely you'll get a machine that doesn't work. Definitely doesn't work as advertised, and no support and no responsibility. And they'll just tell you to F off. So, I don't know. Can I recommend Charmhigh? Once upon a time, sure. With my old machine, you know, I had to make that machine do stuff that it wasn't capable of doing, and I managed to do it. You know, at no point when I bought that old machine did I know I was going to make it be able to do what I needed, because it never said that it could. This clearly states that it can, and it absolutely can't. This is not even 50% as good as I got my old machine. And I've already thrown money at it, thousands of dollars at it, and 7 days of my time. Please, I beg you, don't buy a Charmhigh for the sole reason that they don't deserve anyone's business. If they can't do the right thing by me, they're not going to do the right thing by you. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I'll let you know more about the journey as it unfolds. Bye.